I talk a lot about indie shooters on this channel. Some are really good, and others should never see the light of day again. As someone who talks a lot about shooters, it would make sense that I would be talking about Proteus today, right? It just came out on early access, and all the other typical channels that like first-person shooters are talking about it, but I'm not. That isn't to say I'm not excited for it. I am. It looks really good, but I have not bought it yet. I'm waiting until it's closer to when it's out of early access, and I decided to buy another indie first-person shooter that I was really looking forward to instead this month. Xibalba, or Xibalba, or Xibalba, there's multiple ways I've heard it pronounced. I previewed this game back in August, when I played through the demo version of the game. My early impressions were generally positive. I liked the aesthetic and the Mayan theme. I liked the overall feel of the game, so I was excited to see the full game finally released. Xibalba is an interesting game to talk about though, because while there's a lot I like about it, damn, this is a janky game. It's definitely not a game for everyone. Anyways, let's get into it. The good, the bad, and the janky. So first, we'll start with an overview. If you've watched my preview about the demo, you might have already heard me talk about this, but Xibalba is a Mayan-themed first-person shooter. I really like this theme. It's unique. There aren't many other games like it with a Mayan or even ancient theme to the FPS genre. The only other ones I can think of are like Power Slave, or I guess the upcoming Effigy kind of gives off that vibe too, but most of the time it's demons, or aliens, or robots, or Nazis, or something like that. So I appreciate the change of pace with the Mayan theme. The levels are mostly ancient ruins and temples. Sometimes it gets pretty dark. Luckily, you do have a flashlight that you can see things with. This theme is not only present in the level design, but also in the enemy design as well, with creatures lifted straight from Spanish mythology. I'm not too familiar with the mythology, admittedly, so I don't know what a lot of these things are, but I still like the aesthetic. Though I'm not sure if these guys carried guns in the original Spanish folklore. The art style is also really cool and unique. Xibalba has 3D crafted worlds and levels with 2D sprite enemies roaming the environments. You'd think that this would look kind of jarring, but I actually like the contrast of 2D enemies on 3D backgrounds. It just makes the art direction stick out to me, though some sprites are drawn better than others. The player character model leaves a little to be desired though. So I mentioned this in my preview for the demo, but the arm looks a little stiff and awkward. I know this is because I play with a high FOV. The default FOV obscures the arm a lot more, but it still looks weird. I don't need or want a lot of gun sway or anything like that, but a little movement would have been appreciated. On the subject of settings, there are also some appreciated setting options like general graphics options, resolution, and the ability to turn off motion blur. For this release, they fixed the performance issues with the higher resolutions as well. If you recall back to my first impressions video, I had to play at 1920 by 1080 instead of my 3840 by 2160 default resolution because my performance was tanking. This has been fixed, and I am now able to play at my max resolution without losing any frames. Much appreciated. Though annoyingly, my settings get reset every time I close the game. So every time I come back into the game, I need to turn motion blur off and set my desired mouse sensitivity. Every time. With all that said, the guns feel fun to shoot. They provide expected feedback with good sound effects. I genuinely like the gunplay in this game. It's not pushing any boundaries, but it feels good, and unlike other indie shooters I've played this year, the guns shoot every single time I click the mouse. Guns that shoot when you click? What a concept. I think the devs also listened to my first impressions regarding the super shotgun too. In the demo, the super shotgun felt underpowered and inaccurate to me, and I often just used the standard shotgun to fight enemies across the map. But they fixed the super shotgun. It feels powerful, and it's super useful in tearing through a room full of enemies. The super shotgun is usually my go-to weapon for most first-person shooters, and this super shotgun is no exception. I'm so glad they changed it, and it's now my most used gun in the game. Movement feels really smooth as well. I did get stuck on the environments here and there, mostly while going upstairs. You can't just walk up most stairs, you kind of have to jump or hop, and some of the jumps are a little awkward, but it was rare. And it's just a lot of fun to run and jump around while shooting enemies. Jumping might feel a little floaty to you at first until you realize how much control you have over the movement. It's like the aerial control rune from Doom. You can move in any direction while in the air, and it just feels really good. So the core of this game, the running, the shooting, the jumping, feels very good and provides a very fun experience. I found a very good tactic in this game was to jump out from behind cover, get a shot off, and then slide back into cover, peeking out to get the hit and then sliding back in. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in this game. The devs send a lot of enemies at you at once, with a variety of different kinds of attacks, and the level design is very cramped for the most part, taking the labyrinthian corridor approach of games like Wolfenstein 3D instead of the open arenas that we see in most first-person shooters today. So there's not a lot of room to strafe around enemies. You need to be aware of where you're backing into to avoid getting pushed up against the wall. It's old-school level design assholery through and through, though I found the levels pretty straightforward to navigate. There aren't really any keys to find other than these platforms you need to step on to unlock exit doors, but I never really felt lost playing this game. Every level funnels you into where you need to go in a natural way. It all makes sense and never felt confusing to me. One more cool thing is that all of the levels are actually named after different metal songs, namely songs by Metallica, Iron Maiden, and Judas Priest. Not everything was amazing about Xibalba though. Let's get into the bad and the janky aspects of this game. So the first issue is the difficulty. I want to make it abundantly clear, I like challenging games. I think most games are meant to be played on their harder difficulties as they kind of force the player to dig into the game's mechanics and really figure the game out. I play most games on harder modes. I play Doom 2016 and Eternal on Nightmare. I play a lot of first-person shooters. I'm pretty good at them, and I can usually get a good grasp of the game's mechanics by playing through on the hardest difficulties. And I beat the Xibalba demo on Autora Madre, which is the hardest difficulty for the game. On this difficulty, you will die in 2 hits unless you have armor. And I started this final release on that difficulty as well, got through the first level, and then hit a wall with the second level. A different second level than what was on the demo, by the way. I legitimately don't think this game was balanced for this difficulty. Kind of like how Nightmare in the original Doom was intended to be this bullshit troll difficulty, that's kind of how I feel about Autora Madre. It's brutally unfair. The second level sends so many enemies at you out of these monster closets, and barely gives you any health, armor, or ammo pickups to deal with it. So I dropped it down to the second hardest difficulty. This difficulty has the same enemy and pickup placement, but enemies do not do as much damage and have less health, so it's a lot more manageable. Still challenging and frustrating at times, which you'll see in a minute, but it's manageable. The Xibalba seems to have been changed as well. This was one of my favorite things about the demo. Periodically, this creepy singing would be heard, indicating that the Xibalba had appeared in the level, and you had to cautiously proceed through the level as she hunted you down. This seems to have been changed to me. I originally thought that her appearance was tied to level progression or enemies killed, but the devs had commented on that video saying that it was a timing thing. If you took too long to finish the level, she spawns. But when playing through the final released game, that creepy singing seems to be gone now, and her placement seems more preset now instead of her spawning in randomly. Like in this level, which was the second level from the demo but occurs later in the final release, she's just in the basement already. I tested this and completed the entire first level, finding every secret and killing every enemy, and still had to wait several more minutes for her to spawn. She used to spawn a lot earlier, I feel, and this takes away a lot of the tension. You could easily finish most levels without her spawning, and once she becomes a normal enemy, she's just kind of placed in the level. She's a tough enemy to fight when she shows up, don't get me wrong, and I like the cool green glow that she gives off now, but the creepy atmosphere and tension seems to be gone. Like I said, I liked the overall enemy designs. Many of them provide a challenge and have cool looks to them. I found these banshee-looking enemies to be especially difficult. They move really fast and do a lot of damage, but some of the enemies are just broken. And I don't mean like difficult, I mean like they don't work as intended. The biggest offender are these jaguar guys. They literally do not move unless you are right on top of them. You can literally just line them up and shoot. Their AI is non-existent, and it was very easy to kill them from across the level before they even attempted to transform or attempt to damage you. In the same vein, sometimes I feel like levels weren't exactly designed right. Some rooms feel small, and you can see enemies clipping through the ceiling. These big headless torso guys were especially susceptible to this, and they would even just straight up walk through walls, which was really annoying. There were times health or ammo pickups would be placed under the floor or in the ceiling where you can't reach them. I fell through the level a few times too, like straight through the floor. One of these times was in a secret level I found too. The secret level was actually really cool. It wasn't really related to the Mayan theme. It was on a space station and there were these soldiers and mancubus. I liked the vibe, but I would have liked to see a little more cohesion. It was weird to suddenly have these unique soldiers and mancubus just to go back to the Mayan enemies later in the level. Anyways, at one point I fell through the floor, I had to quit out of the game and come back. When I reloaded my save, it brought me to the next level. I didn't even get to finish the secret level, which was a big bummer. And there's no level or chapter select that I'm aware of, so I would have had to play through the entire game over again, and this was in the middle of the 3rd chapter. Annoying. Because of that, I'm assuming I missed some weapon that uses these flame fuel pickups, because I can't figure out what these are used for. A quick note about the weapons, I liked pretty much all of them. The pistol is useless once you get any other gun, as it is with any retro FPS, and I love the super shotgun, and I liked the machine gun, the bow, and the relic a lot. I wish there was some sort of rocket launcher or chain gun though, but overall, I like these guns, and I began using different ones for different situations. The super shotgun became my main workhorse gun. The machine gun was used to kill the jaguar guys and to snipe enemies from afar. The bow was useful for powerful enemies at far range, and the relic was used against powerful enemies more up close. Two other annoyances have to do with level starts. When a level starts, it defaults you to the machete. Okay, no big deal, you just switch to a gun before moving out. But sometimes the level starts with an enemy attacking you. In the later levels, it's tough enemies. That few seconds needed to switch from machete to a gun to fight these enemies can result in a lot of damage. It's not quite game-breaking to me, but it's still really annoying. Just let me keep whatever gun I had out in between levels. Why even switch me back to the machete at all? The other annoying thing is that ammo doesn't replenish upon death, not to a set amount, nor to the amount you had at the start of the level. It brings you back to what you had when you died. So if you died with no ammo, then you'd revive with no ammo. And if you revived with no ammo in a spot where a tough enemy was in front of you, then you have to scrounge something up really fast. Couple this with the fact there are no checkpoints in the game, other than the start of levels, it gets really frustrating needing to replay levels or parts of levels over and over again because you die to an enemy clipping through the wall, or you took a bunch of damage at the beginning having to switch to the machete, or because you don't have any ammo. And these levels get pretty long too, with dozens of enemies attacking you. Fuck. Despite all the jankiness though, I still really liked this game. It pisses me off a little bit, and I wish Reef Software took a little more time to smooth things out and double check all the details, but Xibalba is still a lot of fun. It's honestly a testament to the core gameplay that I like it as much as I do, despite how janky this game can be at times. Of course, this is keeping in mind that this is a small indie game made by a small team. I've never heard of Reef Software before Xibalba. This is probably many of the team's first real commercially released game, and it's only being sold for $7. So I am judging this game through a different lens than I would a $60 AAA game. Still, I liked Xibalba more than some of the other indie shooters I played this year. If you're willing to work with some of the jank and put up with some occasional poor level design, difficulty spikes, Xibalba delivers a very fun, old-school first-person shooter experience worth checking out. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet. I have one more full game review planned for 2020. I hope you stick around and check that one out too. Bye.